Order for your mamma, I don't bother no TV, so best so like it. I'll be commenting or subscribe to the channel now. Rebecca Akufo, young first lady at Enche, Obifiso, Niger, new lady Abba, Lodina. Na I was some abanise, and I was some but I ever fancy. Near my didn't crew film this election and after election at that pan a speaker and says some would do a parliamentar. Amma Akufo ne end, you know, and should I uncle Smith this manona a hana yere pie, a hana yere pie, and you know, a man a dry more to make a handsome speaker or bra. Na woko parliament or woko here with state of nation address no na no na dey nsem bebraba am ko focus ya didn't know yes I didn't know reactions but go be also the reason to me yes but as a first lady or dress so to protect no kun ja e be na do guy yes I politics sanity e be so ba like no ba comment now subscribe na who say foot to say madam who say or time way and I'm sorry any young kufa so ne want to ha na wa hwe so ye mo yenko tie asemi imra
is what is known as property owning democracy, and you might want to trace it back to the days where only those who owned landed property could vote in elections and participate in making decisions, about governance and so on. Now, if you take the history of political science, we are told, for example, that in ancient Greece, that was where democracy as we know it today started developing. But the Greek state had slaves. Slaves who had no rights whatsoever. And therefore, the Greek state, in terms of today's definition, cannot qualify to be a democracy. Because society was stratified, along class lines, and not all the classes had rights, and so on. So, essentially, the National Democratic Congress has never claimed to be a socialist party. What it has claimed to be is that it's a social democratic party which is somehow or can somehow be seen as an advanced form of capitalism. So both the NDC and the MPP are capitalist parties, excepting that one is very primitive and one has pretensions of modernity. You understand? So I think it's important to clear that. Now, having cleared that, there is something else that I think is important to clear. And it's this whole concept of development and how we achieve development. In this Fourth Republic, all the governments we have had exclude the mass of our people from the development process. So the development is defined simply as borrowing money, usually huge amounts of money, by big men and women who constitute government, ministers and so on, get together and they borrow huge amounts of money. And then they bring in foreign contractors and consultants to do what they call development. So development is defined as overhead bridges, some roads, some hospitals, and so on. The people of Ghana are not involved in this process of development. They are not involved at all, at any level, in this process of development. Now, I'm hoping that one day we would have a concept of development which clearly implies the mobilization of our people to solve their own problem using their own resources. That, as far as I'm concerned, would be true development. So in terms of strategy, the two strategies look alike. The two strategies actually do not involve the mass mobilization of our people to resolve their own concrete problems of access to education, of improved health care, of better dietary conditions, and so on. And I hope that at some point this will change. Now, it's important to note that the State of the Nation address, as we saw yesterday, was so very full of drama. In fact, the dramatics dominated this address. And the first drama really has to do with the ADC of the president collapsing behind him. And it raises a number of important questions. First of all, it's important to find out what has happened to him. If he fell ill, has he recovered? And it's important to encourage his family and friends and so on, you know, to take very good care of him. He collapsed in the performance of his duty as an employee of the state. And I think that we should show a lot of sympathy for this gentleman who collapsed behind the president. Now, one of the questions which arises immediately is, his collapse, was it due to a known health condition? And if it was due to a known health condition, how come that he continued to function as an aide to the president and was deployed to stand behind the president, you know, for this address? You are standing behind the president. It's not just a show. It has so many implications. The role assigned to him also involved the protection of the president in case of an emergency. And if he had a known health condition, he could not have played that role. And his choice must be problematic, you understand? Now, if it was not a known health condition, is it that the health condition existed, but because of lack of examination, it didn't come up? And if that is the case, then there's another serious problem that we need to look at, and it's a security, you know, problem. Now, this guy was on camera, and he didn't collapse all of a sudden. The collapse started. I saw it. It took minutes before he hit the ground, and to the right and so on, before he eventually sank to the ground. Now, for those of us who were watching the address on camera or on television, we saw it happening. Now, my question is, didn't anybody else see this happening? Because if the president is speaking in such a forum, attention ought to be on him. Everything around him ought to be noticed and so on. How come that this guy was allowed to go through those processes and eventually collapse to the ground? Somebody must have failed in his duty, you know, and I think it's an important issue, you understand. The other thing that hit me, you know, was the president's own reaction. It was so very surprising, because I expect that there ought to be a certain bond between the president and his aide-de-camp. In fact, his very life depends on his aide-de-camp. And I was surprised that when this gentleman fell to the ground, the president did not appear to care. He didn't appear to care at all. He didn't go to his aid. I mean, people beyond the president had to rush to assist this gentleman. And that is a huge betrayal of an attitude which is most surprising. Because even people we don't know, if they collapse in public, our reaction is different. Now, there's an ADC to the president who collapses to the ground, and the president does not lift a finger to help him. So I'm standing there, I'm watching television.